From the nonpartisan Maddy Institute and the California channel at the state capitol, this is a Maddy Policy Brief.
Welcome back. I'm Mark Kepler with the Maddy Institute. So how do we balance the water needs of Valley's agriculture with the environmental needs of the region? What approaches show the most promise? We're talking with Ellen Hannock, a water policy expert with the nonpartisan Public Policy Institute of California. It seems to be kind of a simple supply and demand issue here. There's a basic imbalance between the Valley's local and imported water supplies and its water demands. So how do we close that gap?
Well, you can close it in two ways. You can add some more supplies, or you can reduce demand. And my sense is that the solutions are going to vary across the valley because the extent of the problem is different. Some places have a bigger gap to fill than others. It's going to also depend on what kind of funds people can mobilize to add the supplies.
Let's talk specifically about groundwater for a second. What are some of the ways that we can deal with this issue of groundwater overdrafting?
So everyone across the valley is going to have to develop plans to manage their groundwater basins. Now, there are some basins where, if you look at the accounts...
it's interesting you say the word accounts because I was just thinking as you're talking, it's a bank.
It's a bank.
It's a water bank.
It's a bank.
Your
water's down there. You got inflows coming in, and you got people taking water out. So it's very much you have to think about it like a bank account.
But there's been more being taken out than is going in.
More right. So it's running a deficit, and so in places where you've got that deficit, people are going to have to over time plan on getting that bank account into balance. They don't have to do it overnight, but they're going to have to make serious progress. So the first key step is actually figuring out your numbers, and we don't have good math on all of the
So we really don't know
basins.
how much water is there or how much it could hold.
Well,
or do we?
We have some idea, but what we don't know always is how much is coming out. Who's taking, how many straws are in the basin, and how much is coming out, and how much is actually actively being put back in, and that accounting has to get better.
So no, they didn't have to, prior to this law, they didn't have to report that.
They didn't have to report it. They didn't have to even measure it. So in some places they haven't been measuring that, and they're going to have to do that. Some places are ahead of others on that, I would say, across the valley.
So how do you suggest we manage the groundwater reserves then that we do have?
So I think a key thing is incentivizing people to add more water, to recharge water. So right now we're in a wet year, fortunately, after some years of drought. There's a lot of extra water around. You want to get that into the ground, and you can get that into the ground through recharge basins, which are places that are really good for water seeping into the ground.
Usually on the periphery of a town.
Often on the periphery of a town, sometimes right in towns, like Fresno has some.
We do.
But you want to make sure you manage those and you protect those areas so that they're available for that. But then you also need to use farmland because there's a lot of it. There are 5 million acres out there. A lot of that is on soils that are good for recharge.
So it could be fallowed farmland that you use for recharge?
Could be fallowed, or you can also use during the winter and early spring when it's not the growing season yet. You can use the cropland as a place to recharge.
Seems to make a lot of sense.
Yeah.
So acknowledging there's no silver bullet here, what needs to be done to erase the valley's overall water deficit? What are some options? I mean, I think one thing you talked about were trading programs and those kinds of things.
Right. So I think you have to look at there's some options for expanding the pie, and that includes capturing extra runoff. That's an option that's going to help. There are some ways to repurpose water. So oil down in Kern County, on the east side of Kern County, there's some oil wells that have water that looks like it's probably of sufficient quality for certain kinds of agriculture. That adds to the pie. Different ways like that. And then for the part about managing demand and reducing use, if you have trading among farmers, you can reduce the costs of reducing demand because some fields are just more productive than others, and that farmer might be willing to take some funding in exchange for making his water or her water available to somebody else.
Any suggestions on dealing with the water and air quality challenges?
So this is going to be a key thing where kind of looking for cooperative ways to manage this is important because just to give you a big picture idea of the numbers, as much as 500,000 acres of cropland could come out of production over time in order to bring the water balance into, get the water bank into balance. And that is, looking at maybe 10% of all irrigated acreage. If that's just left there to sort of, to be dust, that could be bad for the air quality. But if you manage some of that for habitat, that could be, you could get some ecosystem benefits. You might be able to use some of it for solar. People are looking at that. So there are ways for farmers to get benefits out of it, and for other benefits for air quality and for habitat.
We've only got about 30 seconds left. I want to ask this one last question. You argue in your report that local and regional institutions are ill-equipped to develop effective solutions for the region, and you said that state and federal agencies often don't coordinate, or sometimes are even at cross purposes. So what are the challenges and opportunities with better coordination and cooperation?
So it's clear that cooperation and coordination are going to be key to making all of these things work, taking it up really to the next level. I think folks in the Valley are starting to realize that, but they still need to really figure out, how they're going to make that work at the local level.
Well, I want to thank our guest, Ellen Hannock, with the Nonpartisan Public Policy Institute and director of their Water Policy Center, for joining us.
For a more in-depth analysis of this and other public policy issues important to Californians, please log on to our website at maddyinstitute.org and click on the Policy Analysis tab.